Hi friends, I'm Jocelyn Peters, the maker and designer behind Mountain Song Designs, and thank you for joining me for this tutorial. Today I'm going to share with you how to change yarns, alternate skeins on every single round. And we're going to show it with just regular stitches, and then also I'm going to show you how to do it with a slip stitch on that first stitch. So let's get started. To join this next color, so I've knit all the way around, I've slipped my stitch. Now I'm ready to start knitting with a new color. So I'm going to make sure I have plenty of tail here to weave in later, and I'm going to start knitting. There it is. And once I get a couple of stitches, what I like to do, what helps me, is I take the tail of what I just joined and the working yarn that I'm not using at the moment, and I just tie a little bit right there. Later on, I can go back in and tighten that. It helps to keep this gap together and you won't see it later. So now I'm just going to keep knitting all the way around, and I will see you at the end of the round. Okay, so I've reached my beginning of round. You can see that this stitch came a little bit loose. I'm going to come back here to this tie, pull on that just a bit. I don't want to go too tight though, because I don't want to make this too tight. So slip my beginning of round marker, and I need to switch my yarn. Now you could do this one of two ways. When I am just doing straight knitting in the round like this, without any slip stitches at the beginning, I like to bring my yarn, I set my working yarn down to the left, bring my next color up and over, and I start knitting. I'll get one stitch in, pull on this last stitch just a bit, and at the very beginning you still have to worry about that first one some. You will be able to go back in later and adjust that before you weave in your ends. But let's knit a couple more and look at this again. It's pretty good. I want to make sure that these stitches keep the same tension and that I'm not pulling too much. Now remember, when I go to the next one, the next change, this will be pulled up. And when I pull that up, let's see what happens. Does that stitch stay the same? It almost does. It gets just a little smaller on that leg. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen this up, and loosen the very back there, and let's see what happens now. Now when I pull up, it's fine. So I'm going to knit around, and I'll see you at the end of this round. And I've reached the end of my round. So let's switch again. First, slide the beginning of round. Now you can see this stitch got a little bit loose there. So before I do anything, I'm going to pull on it just a little to make it where I'm happy with it. Okay, now lay the yarn I was just using down. That's my tail, so I don't need that. Pick up the next color, bring it up and over. All right, now this is where I have the flexibility to keep this stitch with good tension. I'm going to knit the first stitch, and remember, when I go to switch again, this will be pulled up tight. So let's see how that looks. I think I'm going to tighten this just a little bit. This is still up. Everything looks good. Okay, now I'm going to keep knitting. I will see you in just a moment. Okay, I've reached the end of my round. Now let's say I want to slip the first stitch of the round. First I slip my beginning of round over. I'm going to pull on my next color, get that stitch kind of where I want it to be so I have a good baseline. Now when I slip the first stitch, I actually like to bring my yarn up from the bottom. So I'm going to lay the yarn that I just used down behind me, pick this up. Now this first transition is a little odd, but I'm going to slip that stitch, and then I'm going to knit around. So this is going to be just fine It's all going to work out. So let's move on to the next round. I'll see you at the end of this round. Okay, I've worked to the end of this round. Oh, that pulls out, and that's normal. I'm going to get that back to the size I like. Now, if you're slipping the first stitch, every other round you have to work that first stitch. So again, I'm going to set my working yarn down because I don't need it, and I'm going to bring this up from the bottom. This is more like helical knitting, I work to the same place and you don't notice the difference because you're using the slip stitch. So for now, I'm going to, okay, I have this, that's about where I want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and do a double wrapped stitch, an elongated stitch, just to show that to you. I'm going to pull on this. Now this is where I have some room. If this is an elongated stitch, you have some flexibility here. This doesn't have to be perfect if you have a little extra room, because I don't like how that looks. And I can do it now, or I can do it later if I leave myself a little bit of space. I'm gonna pull that pretty well close to exactly what I want. Now look, if I were doing another elongated stitch right here, see, that one is much closer to the needle. This first one, I give myself a little bit of wiggle room just because that first stitch, I want to be able to go in later and loosen up that one leg. I'll put that back to a regular stitch and I'll knit around to the end of the round, and I'll see you then. I've gotten back to my beginning of round, so I'm going to use the purple to pull that stitch where I want it to be, drop the yellow, go ahead and slide my beginning of round over, pick up my new yarn. I'm going to go ahead and get that about where I want the tension to be, and since this is slipped, I will slip it. And as I bring my yarn around, I'm going to be careful not to pull too tight because I don't want this stitch to get too tight. So I'm going to be just kind of gentle. There's a bit of finesse involved in this. You'll have to kind of figure out what works best for you. But that I like. And I will keep knitting, and I'll see you at the beginning of the round. Here we are at the end of this round. I'll show it to you one more time. So that got really big. I can set this down, find my next color, pull that so that the tension goes correct. Okay, I've set that down. I bring this over, ready. I'm going to work my elongated stitch where I wrap double, slide the marker, knit into this, wrap it twice. Now I don't want to pull too hard here because I want to maintain this tension. That got a little bit too tight. Can pull on it there. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this just a bit. I don't want it too tight, too loose. And as you do this, you'll find what works best for you. And I will knit. So let's look at this. If you are slipping the stitch or not, even if you're just transitioning, sometimes if you're using magic loop or DPNs, if you are able, you might want to have that change happen here, maybe 2 stitches before, maybe even 2 stitches after, to help you maintain that tension and have a bit more control over it. That's why I love circulars for knitting in the round. 9-inch circulars are your friend if they work for the correct size, if it's smaller knitting, socks, things like that. Not everybody likes them though, and that's okay. So my recommendation though is, if you're knitting magic loop or DPNs, if you can, come over here, and if you can't, just do your best and you will work through it. I'm sure you will make it lovely. So thank you so much for joining me today to talk about how to switch yarns, alternate skeins on every other round. and I will see you in the next tutorial. Thanks, bye.